Hi everyone, it's Virginia Warren here, lawyer and conflict alchemist and co-founder of Lawyers for Love. And this is the Love and Law broadcast. And today we are so excited to have Joanna Abraham. She is an immigration and refugee lawyer from Victoria, Australia. She's working in Melbourne at the moment, and she works with migrants from a variety of cultural and ethnic backgrounds, refugees and asylum seekers, victims of family violence, and those facing the prospect of visa cancellation or deportation. Being a migrant and cultural hybrid herself, Joanna is passionate about championing diversity from both in the legal profession and wider community, as well as challenging stereotypes. That's a good one. Being of Indian heritage, a mixture of both South and North Indian, Joanna is linguistically diverse, speaking both Tamil and Hindi, as well as a bit of Korean. She blames those Korean dramas for that particular obsession. Can't wait to hear about that. Joanna has immersed herself in the community at various levels and has been a finalist and nominee for many awards at her young age. Please read more about her amazing achievements below this video. She says she's passionate about ensuring that the most vulnerable members of our society have access to legal justice and legal advice. Now, it's so lovely to have you here, Joanna, and we at Lawyers for Love are just trying to show how various lawyers are bringing their version or what they think is love into the legal practice, because lawyers don't associate with the L word, love, very often, but it can come in many sort of shapes and forms. It's really connecting with people, and that's what I see you doing here. It's absolutely amazing. But I want to start with asking you the question, why did you choose law as a career?
That's a bit of an interesting one. So initially, a lot of people don't know this, but I initially did a degree in journalism because I wanted to travel the world and write about, everything there was to write about. But when I initially graduated from Monash with a journalism degree, and I got a position working at a music magazine. And while that was really quite fun and interesting, I just felt that there was something almost lacking in the work that I was doing, because I'd always been someone really motivated by what I was passionate about and making a difference, and that's what I always wanted to do. And I just didn't feel like I was where I needed to be. And during this time and throughout my undergraduate degree at Monash, I obviously volunteered quite a bit. So I started off volunteering with the Oak Tree Foundation, and that's how I kind of got connected into a range of different NGOs and not-for-profits that did amazing work on the ground in developing communities. And one of the volunteer projects that I kind of got stuck into was to just travel to the Melbourne Immigration Detention Centre that's out in Broadmeadows. And it wasn't in a legal capacity in any way, but it was just to get to know people who'd been stuck there for years on end, with very limited access to the outside world, very limited access to their friends and family back home, refugees and asylum seekers just waiting for their claims to be processed. And it was in sort of that capacity where I kind of started getting into refugee law, and that kind of really broadened my world. I thought I was completely worldly, obviously being a migrant and coming from a different country, but I didn't realize how much I didn't know. And speaking to these people and hearing their stories of how resilient they'd been, and coming here on a boat, being stuck on a boat for 40 days just to get to safety. I think many people, it's so over-publicized in the media that many people don't understand just how difficult and how desperate you must be to get to safety for you to be in a position where you think, I'm going to put myself in a boat with no food, no water, cramped for 40 days just so that I can be safe. And that really opened my eyes to, so many things that was going on in the world. And I think that was really the start of me wanting to go to law school and become a lawyer. Yeah.
So you went back to law school, you went back to school for this purpose.
That's right. And when I got to law school, it was actually really quite interesting, because I really didn't like law school all that much. I was really all about being hands-on, working in the community, meeting people face to face. And law school was very much theoretical and, very long cases and legislation that was really quite dry. So I think every other month I was saying to myself or to my family, oh, I think I should quit. I don't think this is for me. And my family just really kept, pushing me and encouraging me and saying, you'll be good at this. You'll love it once you're done with it. So just hang in there. And it wasn't until I got to, I think, my third year where I started doing a couple of internships, I got a job at a couple of community legal centres where I was able to really kind of marry the theoretical law with the practical impact it would have on clients. And that's kind of when it all started coming together for me, thinking, okay, yeah, I can do this. This is what I want to do. It's not always going to be, looking through the lens of a textbook.
I'm so happy you stuck it out, because that is that beautiful connection. When you say to me, you got into the music side of things, and then you went somewhere and you could feel it. I mean, that is what we need in legal practice, because as you say, it's dry. There is no feeling, no emotion in training to be a lawyer, and in fact, we're training ourselves out of humanity, thinking that relationship with others is devoid of emotion. Like, it's not. Everything has a relationship. We're in relationship to something or someone else at all times. And those relationships, particularly when there's problems in them, have emotions. And yeah, you need to be able to feel them. And like you've just said, that you can, you've just described to me what it could feel like to be a person in that position. Now, I wouldn't know that because that's never happened to me, and I've never been a migrant, and I've never been out of my own country living in a different cultural environment. But you have that experience, so you can bring that to the table.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. So even after I graduated from law school and I was doing my legal training, and people would ask me, what area of law did you want to be? Did you want to work in? And like, even though I'd obviously started off with a real passion and interest for working with refugees, at that point in time, I had no idea, but I did know what I didn't want to do, and that was anything to do with like corporate or commercial, or anything basically that wouldn't allow me to have one-on-one interaction with clients, because I knew from the get-go that that's what would drive me to do the best and be the best I could be as a lawyer, because I didn't think I'd enjoy it if I was just stuck behind a computer. So that's kind of really what has been my motivating force, throughout my life, and, of course, throughout my legal career. And the fact that I have been through that journey, migrating with my family. I have been separated for long periods of time from my grandparents, who I'm very close to. That really allows you to not just look through a lens of being a lawyer, but look through the lens of being a human being, and understanding that people come to you. They're just like you and I. Just because you need a service from a lawyer, and as a lawyer, we're obviously very professional, and we want to, it is a bit of like a pat on the back. Oh, yes, you became a lawyer. Well done, you. But at the same time, we have to remember that the law is there to serve people and not the other way around. So I don't think we should lose focus of the fact that we are all first and foremost human beings, and that we need to treat our clients as such.
And I think that you're so right in saying that, because I think that's why we're missing what the value is in our own profession for ourselves. Is to provide a service to others is really serving ourselves in the end. And to deliver that kind of service is fulfilling. That is fulfillment. And I looked at, I think it was Adam Lipsig. He did a beautiful YouTube video, which was called Finding Your Purpose. And the bottom line of that was serving others. Everybody agreed that when they provided a service to others that got those people an end to what they were looking for, some satisfaction, you too were satisfied. That was the satisfaction in it.
I really like that saying. That's, it goes something like, find something you love doing and you'll never have to work a day in your life. I don't quite agree with that, because there's still a lot of it's very emotionally and mentally challenging. But whenever I catch up with people from law school or other lawyers who don't work in the same sort of industry that I work in, the resounding response to me, talking about my work, is that you're one of the only people we know who actually loves what you're doing. I think that's so telling, because a lot of the time we go into the law thinking, okay, it's all about getting to a top tier, making the big bucks, and, being really professional and wearing those snazzy blazers and walking up and down on Collins Street. But, and that you obviously do want people to do that work, because it is important, and there are some people who do really enjoy it. But I think for the most part, it's just this little hole that we kind of pigeon ourselves into thinking that's the route that we need to take in order to achieve this perception of success, whereas we don't really stop and ask ourselves, what do you want to do? What impact do you want to make? What do you think you'd enjoy doing? And I think that's really what's lacking in the legal industry as a whole, that the fact that your passion needs to guide where you end up as a lawyer, because that will dictate the kind of lawyer you are and the longevity of your legal career. Because a lot of us burn out when we're doing unfulfilling work, when we go to work day in, day out, and we just think, where's the end? Is there more? But if you choose a career and you choose a purpose instead of a career, I think that really is your guiding and motivating factor to keep going to work each day, each year, and doing what you do really well.
Following your passion, that's one thing I really live by. Now, whatever that looks like in every moment, it always leads you down the right path.
That's right.
Following your passion always leads you down the right path. So if you start out by following a passion of, because I hear most lawyers get into the job because they think prestige, money, status.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's an option. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's an option. Now, is that a passion? You have to ask yourself, how do you get to that end? But you have to be happy, I think. You have to move through your happy place all the time to keep going, but many of them don't get there.
That's right. I agree. And I think that's why it's really important to always keep assessing, even if you're 5-10 years into your career. If you get to that point where you realize, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, it is never too late to do something different, because I think the law it lulls us into thinking that if we're not doing what everyone else is doing, or if we're not as prestigious as everyone else is, that we're failing. But in reality, we're not. If we're happy with what we're doing, then that's a success in my book.
Yeah, or doing it differently.
That's
so
right.
Doing law differently, that's what we're saying at Lawyers for Love, is we're doing law differently, completely differently. So this is what I'm asking lawyers like you. How are you bringing your version of love into your legal practice?
For me, it's really, it's really not a specific formula of any kind. I bring my whole self to work every day. I don't put on airs or, put on this mask of being a complete professional. Of course, there is a degree of professionality that you have to have, and that's across the board in the legal profession. But I don't put on any airs with my clients. I speak in plain English. I don't feel the need to impress anyone with my extensive vocabulary. I speak to the person as I would speak to, a friend or someone I'm trying to, on a personal level, give advice to. Because at the end of the day, what I always try to remind myself of is the legal problem is what brings the client to you, but what you leave the client with can very well outlast that initial legal problem. So the way I try to work on a daily basis is to make sure that the kindness and the empathy that I show my clients really outlasts the end or the conclusion of their legal issue. So I have old clients still coming back to me 2-3 years later saying, I just wanted to thank you so much. Like, I was, in this really bad space, and I thought, and I'm just an immigration lawyer, like I'm just a lawyer, and I was there for just the one part of their life. But the impact that we continue to have and can continue to have, that doesn't have to end when they no longer are your clients. So I think the most profoundly satisfying part of my role is when I get feedback from clients many years down the track, and they come back and they say, thank you so much. The way you treated me with respect and just with empathy and with love has really helped me, even in these later stages of my life when I've come across something that's, perhaps made me depressed, or if I've had a family issue. So that's really what grounds me and helps me to keep doing what I do, because I don't want to be a lawyer who is just a lawyer. I want to be a human being first and foremost, like I said. And also just to remember that my clients are also human beings with families and with stresses and worries. It's hard being away from your family. It's hard not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring, whether you're going to be able to stay in a country, whether you're going to be separated from your loved ones. A lot of our clients are on temporary visas that could really be taken away at any time. There's no certainty. So the least we can do is to be empathetic, to be that listening ear for them, because they don't get that from anywhere else. They keep getting tossed around from place to place and get told, like in the media, constantly in the community with people who don't understand their background, that you should go back to where you came from. Like, stop complaining. If you don't like it, go back to where you came from. But a lot of these people can't. They would if they could. Their families.
The funny thing is, Freud says listening is healing. So, and I feel that most people in every area of legal practice, when you come in the door, they want you to hear them.
That's right.
Immigrants, they're displaced from what's familiar to them. They are stepping into complete unknown territory, as are most people with a legal problem. So, you are stepping into a conflict and you don't know what to do with it, so you've turned to a lawyer for the answer. Mm-hmm. Most people want to be heard and held. If they feel that genuine connection, then, they feel, wow, someone loves me. Because that really is a loving thing to do, is hold space for somebody and hear them. We all as humans just want that. And there's the technical side of being a lawyer. Yes, you need to know the law, where to find it and how to apply it. That's what we've been taught to do. Mm-hmm. But the most fundamental thing, what you're doing, is so revolutionary for humanity. That is what we need. And we need to teach this in law school. Because words don't teach, experience does. We need to teach people in a loving way how to experience love, how to experience it, and how to bring that with a human connection. I don't know how you could do your job without love in it. How could you do that?
I couldn't. And honestly, it's a hard job, because it's, you've got someone's life in your hands, you've got their emotions, you've got the breadth of their trauma being told to you, and you're having to put that cohesively into a statement that's then going to be picked apart by someone else, deciding whether or not they're telling the truth. But what I found with a lot of my clients is that migration law and refugee law is a really hard jurisdiction to work in because of the framework of the law. But what I found is that even with clients for whom I haven't had a positive result, at the courts or the department or the tribunal, it's still they're still overwhelmingly thankful to me, and they still thank me and say, I know you did the best you could, and thank you for listening. And that's really, I think, the be all and end all. People need someone to listen to them, like you've just said, and just to feel like someone's got their back and someone's holding space for them, so that they can just, for the first time in their lives, take a bit of a breath out and just say, okay, someone's got my back. And
lawyers, I think lawyers don't want to fail. So if I connect with you and I fail, or I get pulled into your drama, I don't want to hear it. It might tear me apart emotionally, because we do deal with all these things a lot of the time. But we realize we're separate people and we're going on a journey, and your journey is different to mine, but I can have empathy for you, and I can see, oh, this is happening, and I connect with it, so that I hold your story too. Because really, the way I see life is your story is my story. It's a humanity story. So, let's share in that story. And if I can get a result for you, if I hear you, that's what I'm here to do.
And of course, you've got to put in those safeguards in place to make sure that you're looking after yourself mentally as well. Having empathy is one thing, and taking your work home with you, even though I'm guilty of that more often than not. You have to remember, I think, at the end of the day, that you are their lawyer, but you just got to find that right balance of making sure that you don't take on the weight of the world on your shoulders, because you are just a lawyer, And I think that type of personalities, it's often hard to remember that sometimes, because we just want to get the best outcome. We want to win, like, or in my case, get the best outcome for your client. But I think it's important to balance.
It could be the right outcome, and that's the thing we also don't know. We don't know what the correct outcome is in life for anybody. We have no control over somebody else's life. We're just there to provide a space, a service with love for them, and guide them through this process, but without taking on the responsibility of winning, because you don't know what winning really looks like.
That's right.
Winning could be having to go back and face something that they didn't want to face. That could be the best thing for them. So we don't, who are we? We don't have that control. And I think when we learn to relinquish that, we'll be feeling better about it. And that's perhaps why a lot of lawyers don't connect, because I think oh, I failed. Because, yeah, we're there to win. We've been trained to win, but nobody told us what winning really was.
Absolutely. And I think winning, obviously, in the traditional sense, is getting a good outcome, a positive outcome in court. But like I just mentioned to you, winning for these clients looks like someone just listening to them, even though the legal outcome wasn't ideal. You know, the fact that someone took the time to listen to them and give them a ear and actually just have no judgment and give them a free space to speak, that was winning for them.
Yeah. And you even said to me you like to hear how they pronounce their names. You might probably, I imagine you would ask them what the foods they're enjoying, all these sorts of things, because it gets more involved. A lot of lawyers are trying to keep it all very clinical, just let's keep to the facts, people, rather than, connecting with culture and food and name pronouncing, all those wonderful things. And that's what I do in practice. It's just, who are you? Tell me about you, your kids, everything, and people say, oh, that'll take a lot of time. And no, it doesn't. It's no different to walking past someone on the street saying hello and just really connecting at a deeper level. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes me enjoy my job even more, because I learn so much every single day. My clients actually teach me a whole lot about things I never would have turned my mind to. And because I get to work with clients from a variety of different countries, I learn so much about their foods and their culture, their practices, and I think that's what I love most about my job, just the breadth of how many people I get to meet and the stories that I get to hear, and then get to tell respectfully to someone else to help them get a visa. So I think that's definitely my favorite part of the job.
So as a general from a general legal perspective, what sort of tips would you give lawyers just to bring more love for themselves into practice and their clients, but more love for themselves?
I think as a general rule, what I would say is what I said at the start: bring your whole self to work. I think we very often try to be the version of ourselves that we think other people want to see, or that we think, that's what a professional should look like. But don't be afraid to show, your future employers or your colleagues who you are, or your clients who you are, because I think that allows you to connect on a bit of a deeper level. And also it makes you sure that you're finding a place with the right people. So I was actually just talking about this with a friend yesterday at church. In my interview for Victorian Legal Aid, I was really hyping up to my now bosses that I really love desserts, and if you guys hire me, I'll be responsible for making sure there's always dessert around, because with me there will always likely be dessert around. Now that has morphed into us having a cakework meeting instead of a casework meeting. We have a roster for who's going to bring the cake or the dessert, some sort of sweet treat. And like, who would have ever thought that saying something like that 2.5 years ago when I had my interview would morph into something that's now a tradition in our team. So, it's those little things. Don't be afraid to say something about yourself, to show a part of yourself just because you think someone might not like it. The right people will appreciate it, and then you're with the right team. Because if you're with a team that tries to push you down into a box, then do you really want that? I don't think so.
Best advice. That's the best advice, because your authenticity is you. Yeah, we're not all these grey, soulless beings, like lemmings in a can. We are individuals, and this is my favorite thing, is just as soon as you are yourself, you're bringing the best version of you to the planet. I need you to be you, because all aspects of humanity need to be represented.
That's
and
right.
We need to connect on our own level. It's vital. And this is so right. We're trained to look and be a certain way, and just stop it, everyone. Just stop it. Just start being yourselves.
And I think another thing as well that's really quite important is for lawyers and legal professionals, I think it's really important that when you find yourself in a group setting or in a work setting or at a boardroom or a meeting, look around the table. Do you see people who look exactly like you and sound exactly like you? If that's the case, then something needs to be done about that, because outside in society, we've got this incredibly richly diverse community, but I think there's still very much a a lot to be done to achieve that in the legal profession. So when you look around the table, there needs to be a reflection of diversity that is reflected in the outside world. And I think until we can all get to a point where that's what we see, we're all going to be struggling to I think break that ice and to break that ceiling, because we're so used to doing things a certain way that no one is willing to disrupt the status quo and, do things differently. And I think that's why conversations like these are really important, because if everyone's too afraid to, go against the grain and break the mold, we're just going to keep repeating the same processes year after year.
Yeah. Do we think clients want cookie cutter people?
And like I said, with my clientele, I don't look typically Indian, and I get that a lot. Most people have no idea that I can speak Tamil, but when I walk into a room and the client has requested a Tamil lawyer, and I'm just like, that's me, and then I start speaking in Tamil to them, the looks and expressions on their face, it never gets old. But like having me in the team, my colleagues come to me often and say, hey, Jo, how do I pronounce this particular name? And I'll tell them, and then they'll bring the client and they'll pronounce the name correctly. And even though it seems like such a small thing, for a lot of people in a lot of cultures, your name is your identity. And having someone, an Anglo-Saxon lawyer, take the time to pronounce your name correctly, that's priceless. And those little things is what diversity in the workplace can bring. Having, opening your mind to different foods, opening your mind to, how different cultures work. With my background and, having migrated myself, I have heaps of conversations with my colleagues about, our cultures and our traditions. And that helps them to understand not just where I come from, but I think in a global sense, a lot more about our clients and how to deal with them. So I think it's really important to make sure that diversity is reflected in each room.
And it truly is that we are all the same fundamentally. We all want to be loved. We all want love in life. And that can look, like different things to different people. But to be heard, absolutely, to be heard is one of those things. And to connect over food or your name is right, your identity. That's really important to people. And we aren't taught that. We aren't taught that at all. And lawyers have lost their identity to a system as well. And they're very protective and jealous of that identity as well. But it's not looking so good these days. That idea of that kind of lawyer is looking a little bit old and crusty, and it's structured and doesn't flow and doesn't connect and is not loving. And that's the way I see it anyway. And I think to see lawyers like you and the lawyers that I'm meeting at the moment, it's just breathtakingly wonderful for me. And people are speaking and saying, hang on a minute, we want to be ourselves. We want to bring our intelligent minds and we want to help people and we want to do this and we want to change the way this looks now so that people can step into their own space and deliver to the planet what they came to do.
Absolutely.
Like you are, which is wonderful. So you were born and raised in Singapore.
That's right.
So the food there is amazing, and you love food and dessert. So tell me your favorite dessert. Can we even say that? Can we say that there is a favorite dessert?
I think with me, it's hard to pick a favorite. I just love too many things to pick just one. I probably wouldn't be able to give you a favorite dessert. I have a lot of favorites. If that helps.
Yeah. Okay. I love this idea of the cake work. I love that. So that's something that, perhaps is a good tip for other law firms wanting to bring, more sort of community into their practices. I love that idea as well, because if someone brings something from their own culture or their favorite thing that their grandmother used to make or something like that, it's just really connecting you to people through the things you love.
That's right. And I think that's the best way to get connected to people. And that's why we're all created differently. We're not all clones of one another for a reason. And sometimes I think the legal industry can kind of beat that out of us at a very early preemptory stage, because we're told we have to dress a certain way and be a certain way and be respectful and respectable and professional. But, you can be all of those things while still being yourself. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, that's true. And listening is something I hear many complaints about. The lawyer doesn't hear me, or the system doesn't hear me. The system doesn't hear, because I don't know whether it doesn't have the time. I just think it doesn't want to connect because it doesn't know how. It doesn't know how.
That's
So
right. And
it's just beautiful to see people like you doing this.
the awesome thing about legal aid is that they have people, they actually take the time to hire people who've got lived experiences with the system. So it's not just a lawyer who's got no idea what they're actually doing and only has, any sort of knowledge of the legal system, but no ideas of how practically that impacts a person going through the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So, and I think that's so important, because knowing the law is one thing, but understanding how someone going through the system experiences that legal process and the law is completely different. So I think that's really important.
Life experience, absolutely. I mean, lawyers come out of law school and a lot of them haven't had a lot of life experience, and then they're being confronted by family law or domestic violence, and they think, whoa, what is all this? They didn't teach me that in law school. Mm-hmm. Why not? Why wasn't those sorts of things taught? And I've got quite strong views on how they could be changed completely as well, but for more connection with humans in that space also. It has been so fantastic to have you with us today, Joanna. I really, really appreciate you coming onto this broadcast, because you've shown me, how, because I haven't worked in immigration law myself, and how that feels. So, you've just enriched my experience on the planet as well. Thank you so much for that. You're such an achiever, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of you around doing marvelous things for law. So thank you so much. And if you want to get in touch with us at Lawyers for Love, our details will be at the bottom of this broadcast as well. And thank you, and have a beautiful Christmas there, Joanna.
Thanks, Virginia. You too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye.